mwana mberi nishikwero na hulumahu mwana wa mberi haluma muno mwana wa mberi nishikwero. Wow. Now the next item we are going to perform contemporary dances, a medley of contemporary music selected from different artists that we have in Kenya, representing some of the communities that are in those musics. The dance styles replicate the community that is performing. DJ, you have our music. The first one is Teulelele, and sometimes you can identify the musicians from the Kalenjin to the Maasai to the Luhya to the Luo to the Kikuyu. DJ, if you're ready, we are ready. so much. Thank you so much. We've now come to the end of the entertainment piece. I'm glad we are given 15 minutes to entertain you and to warm this morning so that all of us have a good, day. Just to mention a few, the students that are represented here are from different faculty. Others doing engineering, economics, music, English literature, and so on. So not all of them are coming from the Department of Music, but we converge in the Department of Music. Yeah, you can please. Thank you. Duncan, go ahead, pick that. You can contact us through Dr. Oyugi or Dr. Miano Wambugu, who is the head of Department Music and Dance. I'm glad that you enjoyed and enjoy your day and the workshop. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's go. Barisa Dita from Hola. Yeah. Rambolo dancers. Yeah. Please tell them to come back. Okay, Rambolo.
So we want to take this chance to appreciate these young men and women who have entertained us here for slightly over 20 minutes. And this is a showcase of what we have in KU. I wanted to say that we have a music department here which performs all kinds of music, classical, the traditional dances they performed here, the contemporary things that they have shown us here. And our students, we as your lecturers really appreciate the work you do, and we thank you very much for being with us today. So let's give them a round of applause as they leave the stage. So thank you very much for being with us, and we hope you will join us to listen in the other sessions. Thank you very much, and have a good day. Thank you. So after this rather warm session of music and dance, and the speaking session by Peter Oroto, who is right behind there, we want to go to the next session, which is about the papers that will be presented. So we have 2 sessions which will be running in parallel. Session 3 will be right here. It will be chaired by Dr. Felicitas Kinyanjui. Dr. Felicitas is here. Yes, Dr. Felicitas is here. And the rapporteur will be Lois Mushemi. So you will remain here. Your theme for discussion is gender discourses in post-colonial Africa. This is the first session of gender discussions. The second session, which is called session 4, will be in Studio 109. So if you don't know the studio, you'll just follow me after this. The title or the theme of that session is Ideology, Art and Virtual Spaces, and the chair will be Dr. Nicodemus Minde from Catholic University, and the rapporteur will be Wanyama Hisa. Wanyama is here. Yes, kindly, we aim to keep time, so both the presenters and those who are chairing, we aim to try and keep time. So the time we have lost, we aim to gather it back in this session. So thank you very much, and I wish you a good session.
So, good morning. Good morning. Yes, I would like to call upon the presenters for this session to kindly go to where Dr. Wafula is so that we present from there. Dr. Pacifica, kindly. Ladi Yakubu. Yadi, are you here or are you online? Yadi, are you here or Yakubu? Friday? Friday? I hope you are with us online. Kiragu, are you here or are you online? Oh, wow. Kiragu is here. Kindly go to where the other presenter is. Thank you. For those who have a hard copy of the program with you, we skip the last name on the program there, Philip. Philip is not with us, is not able to present, but with the permission of the chair of the organizing committee, we are permitted to include Fawn Potney. I think Fawn should be online. Fawn, are you with us? Fawn, if you are there online, kindly get ready. You are going to be making your presentation in this session. Again, with the indulgence of the chair, we are permitted to allow in Sunday. Sunday, I hope you are there online. So from Friday, we'll go to Sunday. We are going to skip Saturday, which will be taken up by Kirago, who is here with us. I think, colleagues, without much ado, I think we get to start the presentation, which is basically on the theme of gender. Yesterday we talked about Afrofeminism as being one of the key themes that the celebrant, Professor Toyin Falola, writes about and gives pride of place in his themes on the rewriting of African history. And I think it is opportune that this morning we listen to what the participants have to tell us about the African voice, the African feminism, and its place in the African history over time and space. So it is now my pleasure to introduce Pacifica Okemwa, who is going to be our first presenter this morning, and who is going to set the tone for the day. Pacifica is the immediate former chairperson of the Department of Sociology and Gender Studies in KENYATTA University. She's a seasoned scholar in feminist studies, and she's also a practitioner in the area of gender. She's a very hands-on person. So without much ado, Pacifica, you have 15 minutes within which to make your presentation.
Just to talk about what is who am I, why is it important for me to make this presentation, despite the fact that I'm not an historian. So please don't expect any history at all in my presentation, because I am not capable of any historical analysis or something like that. It's not possible from my end. So Dr. Pacifica teaches gender and development studies a combined department. And over the years, I have toyed around with the question of gender and gender relations, to be very, very specific. And these gender relations, I sometimes ask myself, why is it so important for us to focus on gender relations in an African setting, where most of the time we even have decided that our culture has no space for those kind of relationships, for those kinds of questions around who we are as men and women, and even our place. Because we come from a cultural setting and background where we are supposed to have been socialized and understood our place, and also that we were supposed to maybe appreciate that space. So why the gender question? So Peter, I've sent you. Thank you. So by way of introduction, I want to mention that perhaps the last 50 or 60 years have been characterized by several movements, several efforts aimed at the achievement of gender equality. And there have even been reforms to that end, including legal reforms. Kenya, for example, has enjoyed that attention actually since independence, or even before that, with the Maendeleo ya Wanawake organization being formed, and also mandated with efforts to try and work towards the achievement of the same gender equality. So my paper is titled Gender Transformation in Contemporary Family in Africa. So why family? You will understand that if there is anything we are going to learn and it sticks in our mind, it might have to come from the most basic institution of society, which is the family. Other socializing agents often would kind of just contribute to or even entrench what has been started in the family, unless we make specific efforts to change some of those things that we learn at the family level. And then the second thing I want to mention is that to a large extent, we want to ask ourselves, have gender relations literally changed within the family? And what is it that we can look at for us to be able to say, indeed, there has been that transformation? Now, without going into so much details on that, I used several approaches in order to come up with this paper. First of all, I did an online poll, and you might ask, why an online poll? This is one of the safe spaces where everybody can be themselves. I mean, you don't have to worry, Dr. Pacifica is my lecturer, and she's collecting data on this, so I'm going to pretend and tell her all sorts of things. So online spaces are very, very safe. They can allow us to be ourselves, and sometimes we can even become abusive in the process. But even when we become abusive, I want to say that that kind of reveals a part of who we are, in a certain way. So I used the Harvard Analytical Framework and looked at what have been the changes in terms of gender division of labor in the household, access to resources, control over resources, decision making, and also tried to look at what have been these influencing factors. If I were a historian, I would go back and ask myself, what have been the trends for the last 50 years? But thank God I'm not an historian, so I live without that. Now, what theoretical underpinnings inform some of the arguments that I make? Number one, I loosely use the word feminist standpoint because I want to incorporate as much as possible all the variants of feminism, including Afrofeminism, feminist thought as has been expounded in the West and all that. Why is this important? Again, the world has become a global village, and I'm not sure we could literally, shut off all other voices that are coming from other parts of the world and say, hey, we are African, and therefore we can only stick to the African voice. That is not very possible. Now, feminist theories have been useful because they help us interrogate the structures of domination and subordination and the resultant gender relations within our families and communities. But more importantly for me, I think I want to emphasize the centrality of people's lived experiences. Feminism allows us to use experience as a methodology for reading into people's lives, people's thoughts, people's positions in a lot of issues, including the gender relations within families. Now, having said that, I want to emphasize that in this presentation, because the data was collected online, I had no control over who responded to the questionnaire. The only catch was this person had to be residing in Africa, and so I used all these, mechanisms for reaching out people in different spaces. Did you manage, Peter? No. It didn't come, and you didn't complain. Okay, let me try someone else, because then I'm not sure I'll be able to communicate so effectively if Felicitas. Why? Because there are few graphs here and there which I thought we needed to look at. That's otherwise I would literally talk through presentation. Okay, the internet is fairly slow, that is why. I see why. Okay, so Felicitas, now it should come. Forget Peter for a minute. Okay, please confirm. Okay, sorry about that. Somebody should have warned me in advance that this is the way things work here. Okay, and so I was saying, I was talking about the centrality of people's lived experiences, particularly the way they express them themselves. So allow people to speak for themselves. Now, out of the data that was collected, I collected data from 170 respondents of different ages. The age range was between 18 years and over 53 years. Remember, I was interested in the last 50 years. So I had put my cap at 50, but a few people with 51 years, 52 years said, if we round this figure, it becomes 50. And so they responded to this questionnaire. Out of these 170, 53.3 participants were women and 45.9 were men. So I would say that this is really a representative of the voice of both women and men in terms of gender relations in the different settings. Now, what were their ages? What were their highest levels of education? They included PhDs, they included holders of first degrees, they included holders of master's degrees. Actually, the majority of the people I was able to reach were very well educated. And this perhaps speaks to who is using these online spaces, and particularly who is it that can respond to a questionnaire that is posted online. Now, and so I present the voices of persons who are well educated, who are well aware of what the family dynamics are all about. In terms of marital status, now this is where things get very, very interesting. We had several categories, and we allowed people to describe their statuses using, as a way of allowing people to speak about their status. And over and above the usual single, married, divorced, we had people saying, hey, I am happily single, I am dating but not for marriage, I am work in progress, I am single but not happy, I'm living with a partner, I'm in a come-we-stay relationship, and many more. Why is this important for me? Notice how we have been able to overcome the social norm that made us think that marriage is the norm and that anything else has no place. And so now we can speak about who we are very confidently, even if we see that this does not conform to what is expected in society. And as an historian, you want to ask yourself, where has this trend come from? Where people are busy, standing there and saying, hey, by the way, I have 2 kids, and forget it, I got these kids, and they're mine. I don't have a husband or I don't have a wife, but I have children. So, and others are telling you, I even went to the sperm bank, and this is how I became pregnant. And so, that is my status. Now, and so for me, that was transformation number 1, that there are various forms of families, various forms of marital statuses, which we would want to pursue and see what is the reason why these are the way they are. Now, coming back to the variables I looked at, performance of household chores. May I say that in many African communities, domestic work has been the prerogative of women for a very long time. But in this particular research, it was quite clear that men are also performing certain chores that we wouldn't have expected of them. And their reasons are very interesting. From, if I don't clean dishes, this brings conflict in the household. And therefore, to avoid this conflict, I'm going to clean dishes. When it comes to changing diapers, you have no choice if you're left with the child, so you will do it. Making your own bed, if you come out of bed last, you're going to make the bed, and all that. So we noted that changes have happened at different levels within the household in terms of performance of gender roles. And key to this finding is the fact that the nanny now plays a central role in many households. And so for those who said, I do not perform many of the gender roles, they also said the nanny does those things, so it has nothing to do with me, which was, I think, the questions that may arise from there is, to what extent then is the nanny influencing, what happens within the family, from gender relations to household, children's behavior and all that. Some of it may not necessarily be very positive, but is a change anyway. Now, in terms of resources, we realized that because of the higher educational levels being enjoyed by both women and men, women as well as men now have access to resources. And what is interesting is that those that have access to resources also want to control the same resources. So as a wife, I do not want to be told how to spend my money. This is different from my mother, who was told, as a married woman, now you stop working and you concentrate on the family. Or, my aunties who got married, and they would take everything and put in front of their husband and say, my husband, I have brought the same resources and now plan for the family. So those changes are there. So to what extent are women or men controlling household resources? It was clear that majority, 40%, control their resources. 36.5% said that they don't control these resources, while there was a 23% that said, sometimes I control my resources, sometimes I don't, which is very interesting. And so when they were asked to explain whether money has caused conflicts within the households, many said, yes, money has caused conflict, while there were others who said money cannot cause conflicts because everybody spends their money according to what it is that they want to spend it on, and they contribute to the family resources. Now, for those who said yes, they had very interesting explanations. Money has caused conflict because he underrates me because I earn more. He underrates me because I earn more. So when a woman earns more, that can cause conflict. And there was a man that said that money has not caused conflict because from the word go, I encouraged my spouse to bring all the money, we put it on the table, and then we plan how to use it together. For me, that is a major shift in terms of how household expenditure, is managed. So we are moving from I to both, which is very, very important. And then there were others who said you cannot trust your partner with a joint account because somebody will withdraw money and use them the way they want. Others will overspend on non-essentials, including beauty products, clothes, beer, taking friends out and stuff like that. So all this was very interesting. When it came to making decision making, we decided to look at decisions that would be controversial, like does your partner control the social activities that you're going to engage in? Very interesting. Majority, about 60%, said no. I do not allow my partner to control my social activities. And then there was a 30% that said, Well, if I don't align my social activities with my spouse, that causes conflict. So what I do is I try as best as possible to align these social activities with those of my partner. And very interesting trend here. The younger couples align their social activities more than the older. The younger ones, it's like the trend is, those who were born recently are able to align their activities. Those who were born some 50, 60 years ago, this is not a plan, so they are not doing it. Finally, we asked ourselves, what would it be that is influencing this? What is it that is influencing these changes that we are seeing? And this is where, as historians, perhaps we need to trace some of this. We looked at education, and we noted that with the higher levels of education, there are changes that are happening. But then again, as a feminist scholar, I want to mention that it's not just general education. Within that education that one receives, there has to be some sort of conscientizing education or awareness-raising education in terms of individual rights. If we go back to the Enlightenment period where we talked about individual rights and, how this has influenced market forces, perhaps we begin to see why this is important. And then, of course, we also noted that the higher levels of education have indeed allowed both women and men to begin questioning traditional beliefs and practices that have tended to subjugate women while enhancing the domination. We questioned religious values as well, and while some people feel religion has had an influence on how they relate with their partners, others said most of these foreign religions have not necessarily had that kind of influence. But as it were, the biggest influence still remained culture, culture. And so we asked ourselves, how can we be saying that culture has continues to influence the way we relate, even at these, after so many years of being fed on different ideologies that should have fed into changes in gender relations. And the argument here is that many of the processes, the social processes in life are really pegged on culture. We look back to, we pick out elements of culture from time to time. And so in conclusion, I may want to mention 2 or 3 things. Number one, that perhaps we need to analyze more the market forces and how these have influenced relationships. And what do I mean by market forces? I mean, several things are happening in many African countries, from cross-generational marriages and relationships, if I may call them that, to women and men choosing to stay single and forgetting about marital relations, to people choosing same-sex marriages and all that. So what are these forces and where do they come from? And secondly, I want to mention that conflicts in the family may not necessarily mean the death of marriages. In my view, they just mean that we are going to come up with different forms, and different structures of families. And this is exactly what is happening. And these different structures of family are going to be acceptable in one way or another because when somebody has the resources and they tell you they want to remain single, what are you going to do about it? They would remain single and take care of their livelihoods. And finally, independence in choice of social activities, workplaces, work environment, and relationships is really, really a trend to watch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pacifica, for that. Let's give her a better clap. She did a good job. Good. Talking about families, we all come from families, and we know our own families, and we know the kind of families that are coming out of our own families and for those surrounding us. A very good job, but we'll come to the questions when we are done with the other presenters. So, colleagues, I hope you are noting down the questions so that when it is that time, we ask Pacifica and the other presenters for clarification so that we can enrich the debate and take it further. At this point, I want to find out if Radi Yakubu, Peter, do you have Radi online? It's her turn. It is their turn to present. In the interest of time, as we look for Ladi, do we have Friday? Friday, are you online? Yeah, I can see all of us are very good participants. Let's look for them. I can see you are all in the clouds looking for them. Watafuteni kwa bidii. Gitu, saidia kutafuta hao participants. Friday na Yakubu. As we try to raise them, we can have the one who is physically present, Kirago, come to present. Let's put our hands together as Kirago comes to present.
Good morning. Yeah, my name is Kirago. I'm a PhD candidate at Egerton University. I conceptualized the title of the topic of the paper as I attempted to merge my passion for sports and history. We all can agree that Kenya is considered by some a major sporting house. But there are issues of gender, there are issues of inequality across different categories, race, class, and so on in the history of development of sports in the country. For this particular paper, traveled back in time to the era before establishment of sports organizations in Kenya. That is between 1906 and 1923. And I found out that in the time, or during this time, the mission societies provided the institutional framework for infusion of Western sports into the country. And therein, there's a lot of things to do with gender. So if you look at the topic, there are a few keywords. In this case, I use the term politics to understand the contested nature of sports. What does sport mean to different people? different times. Muscular Christianity as an ideology that drove development of sports in the West in the 19th century, and also transported to Africa by the missionaries through the school system. So I investigate the role of muscular Christianity, and legitimacy in this case refers to missionaries' pursuit for acceptance of the evangelical and educational programs, in this case as manly programs that were able to address the issues of the state, in this case the British Empire. The next slide, please. The next one. Yeah, the previous slide has at the bottom political economy of sports. Going through existing literature, I found out that other scholars have been asking questions about gender inequality in sports management in the country. And in this case, historians have not played a very big role in trying to uncover the historicity of gender. So by political economy, I refer to the major stakeholders, state, the voluntary associations represented today by sports organizations, by then the church and the market. So my argument is we can trace the meaning of sports in the various ways through which these groups found to use sports, and by extension then the impact on this meaning on sports. So today women play a significant role, Kenyan women, in marketing the country as a huge powerhouse in sports, in participation, but their role in management is silenced. So I sought to understand this disproportion. Why is it that they are doing well in certain sports and doing better than men in sports like volleyball, but even in management of such sports, they still play second position? The existing literature, like I said, looks at the period from 1990s to 2000, when women arrived on the sporting stage, and exclude the earlier periods, and more so the colonial period. The paper examines ideas of manliness and the pursuit for legitimacy. The next slide, please. Yeah, I did review historiographies or histories of sports in Kenya and other literature to obtain scholarship on the subject, and also theories that have been used to explain issues of gender. And those from sociology, because they've been the most active, sociology and sports studies have used the theories and variants of patriarchy and hegemonic masculinity. And for a historian, I found it a bit difficult to follow that line, especially because you run into problems when you're explaining change over time. And then there are two strands of literature on gender and sports. One tries to celebrate the women who have broken the glass ceiling in management and those who are doing very well, as a means of not only highlighting their achievements and motivating women to come on board, but also to demonstrate how these women negotiated the very contested place. The other strand of literature looks at the social, cultural obstacles faced by women in sports, those in management and those in participation. But there is limited analysis of gender in colonial sports. And I cite a book, the only book so far, that looks at evolution of a specific sport in Kenya, athletics in this case, and there are little treatment of women, where they say the book does not cover women in sports because women were not significantly involved, and they stop at that rather than going a step forward to investigate why that was the case, what made it difficult for women to come on board. The next slide. Yes, I have highlighted the political economy of sports, the interest of the various state, voluntary sector, and market interest, and how they impact on the meaning of sports. And in this case, meaning to mean the various ways they find to use sports. For example, if you look at the state, it uses sports as a tool for diplomacy. Some of our best diplomats have been sportsmen and women. If you look at the market, is all about generating revenue and so on. And in those uses, then you can locate position of gender, the location of gender, and that's what I try to do with the church. The next slide. I highlight on methodology. I'm investigating something that has already happened, the post fact. So the research design is ex post facto. I did examine various books and journal articles to obtain scholarship on the subject matter. I also visited various archives, both the Kenya National Archives and the archives owned by the various church and missionary societies. Also, the missionary societies published various magazines that are very, very active in capturing sports in the churches and the mission schools. Their historical text and ethnographies. I also attempted to systematize my data analysis and collection, and used historical methods of establishing of the authenticity of sources and veracity of data, the truthfulness of data. The next slide. I use the cultural theory of history as the main interpretive lens. I need to highlight a few things about this theory. It does look at forms of culture, sports, music, the cinema, and so on. But it's more interested in the meaning of these forms of culture, as opposed to just chronicling their performance. One of the ways to understand cultural theory would be to go through post-structuralism, post-modernity, post-colonialism, but also having a thorough grounding on concepts of gender, concepts of power, concepts of identity, race, and so on. So I found this theory as very appropriate in my research work. The next slide. Thank you. One of the findings is that categories of gender, race, and age were at the very center of organization of sports within the schools, but also because the church also attempted to provide sporting and leisure activities to adults, especially the Europeans in Kenya. It also did have a place, muscular Christianity, in absence of sports policies. Today we operate through policies. Muscular Christianity informed the thinking about sports and physical drills. How do we use them? Who gets to do what in what sport and drill? The missionaries, the CMS and others established Young Men's Christian Association. There's a book that talks about God in the gym, and it highlights the YMCA, the development of the movement, as the church attempted to kick out what was considered effeminate in the West, to make the church strong, and therefore, according to them, able to respond to the needs of the state in terms of security, in terms of labor. And then there was a talk house. The concept itself attempted to bridge the gap between men, especially military men, and the church. So the idea was to build an in-between, making it possible for men of God to interact with military men or ex-military men, and there were many in Kenya. And then schools provided sports and drills, in this case, boys brigade, girl guides, and so on, to both genders, school boys and girls, for the European community. And the thinking was, because of the tough environment in the colony, the pioneering European community needed certain values like fortitude, teamwork, and so on, to be able to thrive in the colony or in the colonies. The next slide. So while the societies, the missionary societies provided sports and drills for both boys and girls, European boys and girls, when it came to African children, the boys were thought of appropriate. They needed the same values that were cultivated through sports and drills. I've just highlighted fortitude and others. But for the girls, they designed a different route, because they felt that an ideal graduate from the schools should be able to serve as a good Christian wife and mother to their children. So the education or the curriculum that was designed for the African girls had very little provision for sports. They were supposed to spend time in what were considered practical domestic activities like sewing and hygiene. You also need to, we were entertained by the university's dancers a few minutes ago, but the missionaries had their misgivings about dancing in the African societies. In fact, they collapsed all African dances into evil dances, the lewd dances. And the argument was, if you allow the girls to participate in African forms of leisure, then you take away that advantage of using them as a means to Christianize African families, like I said, providing Christian wives and mothers. There was also an issue, and this you have to examine it in broader body management. When the missionaries arrived in Africa, gender division of labor as it is today, in some communities, especially the agricultural communities, women spend much of their time in farms. There were seasons when men did not do anything in farming. And the fear of the missionaries was, especially missionary women, that it was very difficult to reach out to these women to spread the gospel to them, because physical exertion would crush all womanliness in them, making it difficult to convert them. Let's move to the next 2 slides, please. The next one. Yes. In conclusion, I argue that the missionaries pioneered the voluntary sector of Kenya's sports economy, political economy. That the idea was to make African boys Britisher, in this case. Missionaries like Dr. Arthur, a very renowned CMS missionary, argued that sports and physical drills made African boys, converted the mission boys into Britisher forms. In this case, strong men, but men with morals as well. And I also conclude that the type of education that was designed for African girls alienated them from sports. And lastly, this is the very beginning. This period is the very beginning of what sometimes seems as natural, that men do sports and women don't, even when the realities are very different. We have very many women doing very well in sport. Thank you.
Let's give a better clap to Kirago. Very well. 2 papers, very rich with commonalities. 1, very important. They're all talking about market forces. Market forces in the family, market forces in the sports field. Or did you hear that? Sindio? Yes. Pacifica were talking about the men who are changing diapers, men who are doing household chores, and the other presenter was talking about sports that are genderalized, that the African woman is supposed to be a good wife, a good mother, taking care of hygiene and taking care of the family, and is not supposed to go out and do other things because the African leisure, including the dance, was considered to be evil. Those are the 3 main things I got from the presenters. Today is Thursday. We are going to skip Friday. We are going to keep Saturday, and we go to Sunday. Peter, is Sunday here? Sunday? Sunday is here? Yes. So we are going to listen to the third presenter online, and then we get into the question mode. Thank you.
I want to thank the conference planner for the indulgence, for allowing me to present eventually. I'm happy to be here. And today I'm presenting on the topic Abarameji, Advancing an African Ecofeminist Ethic of Care. It is a revision. I've revised the original topic that I sent. Abarameji is a Yoruba word which refers to the pregnant woman. And so today I'm looking at the relationship between the experience of the pregnant woman and the experience of the environment from the ecofeminist perspective. I want to see the nature of the care that we extend to the woman and also the nature of care that we extend to nature. Because when we talk about the pregnant woman, we are talking about somebody who is bringing forth future generations. And also the ecofeminists, they are interested in human activities on nature and also the implications that it has for us as humans, for the environment, and also for the future. So I want to look at the relationship between ecofeminist ideas and then the notion of abarameji. To start with, I will be looking at the meaning of ecofeminism. Ecofeminism is the theory which holds that there is a relationship between the oppression of women by men and also the oppression of nature by humans. So it is believed that we need to understand how humans, especially the Western man, whose ideology is often imprinted on the other culture, nature for them is seen as the object that is just there, inactive, unresponsive, careless, indifferent entity that should be used to meet human needs. And this is at the background of many of the ecological crises that we have now. For them in the West, they believe that nature is just there to be dominated upon. And this understanding started since the period of the Enlightenment. So for the Western man, it is natural and absolutely normal to dominate over nature. And they find justification for this principle from the Judeo-Christian Bible, which holds that humans are created in the nature of God. They are there to dominate over nature. And we have historians like Lynn White that have advocated that Christianity bears a huge burden of the guilt in our current environmental crisis. He believes that the origin of ecological crisis can be traced to the Bible, which established a relationship between God, man, and nature. So for the ecofeminists, they believe that an understanding of gender subjugation, an understanding of the experiences of women would help us to understand how human beings dominate and exploit the environment, because they see the environment as means to an end. And also the woman is seen as a means to an end. According to Karen Warren, she believes that the aim of ecological feminism is to develop strategic explanations and conceptual analysis of interconnected environmental and feminist issues that generate creative, healthy, and sustainable relationships among us all, with each other, and with the earth. So for me, the conceptual analysis, the interconnection that I want to establish between the experience of women and the experience of nature is through the experience of the pregnant woman. And now I go to abarameji, the care of the pregnant woman in Africa. In Africa, we believe that the woman is responsible for bringing forth future generations. And the reason I used the word abarameji is because the intention of this article is to go to the roots, is to identify with the common people, especially those who are in the remote areas of Africa that have little or no access to medical care. You know, the few who are in the cities, they have access to this care. Some of them can afford it. They have better maternal care, not so perfectly, because myself, I am a victim of such inadequate care, despite having access to some extent to maternal care. So I use that concept of abarameji to exhume the sense of a traditional Yoruba woman, the traditional African woman who is pregnant and who is expected to bring forth a future generation. In African marriage, it is important for a woman to bring forth a child, and an healthy child. We always want an healthy child. And I've had trees in Africa where women gave birth by themselves, where women gave birth in their homes. Things comes with certain complications. It comes with complications because we assume that whoever gives birth at home is the stronger person. Whoever can labor is the stronger person. You know, you find women who are saying they do not want to have a cesarean section because they feel a strong woman should give birth naturally. And that is because the society has imprinted such ideology into them that as a woman, you're expected to be strong. As a woman, you're expected to be productive. As a woman, you're expected to bring forth your child by yourself. But we thank God for education and enlightenment. A lot of people are beginning to understand that having a healthy child is the most important thing, because pregnancy, no matter whether you give birth on your own or through cesarean sections or through IVF and other things, but what now the more healthy mother. But we still see that despite all of this, the rural African women, majority of them, do not have access to good health care. According to World Health Organization, it is established that in Western Africa, 1/3 of pregnant women did not have access to antenatal care. They didn't have access to antenatal visits, and such that maternal mortality is so high in such rural areas and communities. So what I want to now establish is that what is the relationship between ecofeminism, between the experience of the pregnant woman and the need to care for the future, for the child the pregnant woman is bringing forth in future, and also for the future of our environment. And this is where ethics comes in. Ethics is about signposting. It is about discussing concrete topics that can give us a leeway, that can give us a direction to the future. And so in the case of the woman, I find out that the pregnant woman is precarious. The pregnant woman suffers from the danger of precarity. The pregnant woman is vulnerable. The pregnant woman is vulnerable. And so there is need for more care for this pregnant woman. It is the pregnant woman that brings forth the future. It is the pregnant woman that brings forth children that will constitute future generations. And also on the issue of environmental ethics for the future, whatever existing generations do now has an implication for our environment in the future. That is why we must establish policies now that will ensure that these future generations that women are bringing forth, and also with the support of technology now, that we are bringing forth, such that they can have access to a livable environment, such that they can have access to natural resources, because the woman understands the ethic of care. The woman understands what it means to take care of a pregnancy, to bring forth a child. And so ecofeminists, they understand what it means to take care of nature, because nature is pregnant with consequences that present generations are already suffering from, and consequences that future generations would suffer from. So for us, pregnancy is about the future. We need to take care of the future. And also our current ecological activities have implications for the future. We need to take care of the future. So I'm saying in this paper that the rural women, especially those in the poorer community, should have access to quality services. And also environment, government, individuals, policymakers, researchers should come up with environmental policies that can help us to ensure the sustainability of our environment. Because all of the activities that we carry out now, they aggravate the occurrence of natural disasters. They aggravate the multiplication of ecological crises. So we need to find pathways that will guide human actions so that the environment would be better, and also so that the experience of the pregnant woman will be better, such that the future can be guaranteed for the child and also for the environment that the child would live in. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Sunday, for that presentation. Let's applaud her better. She has talked about all of us when we were in our mother's wombs, and the environment and the challenges and the ecological crisis that needs to be taken care of. So, colleagues, now we've come to that moment where we should raise questions. Yes. So I'm going to take the first three. The first three. Yes, I can see I have two hands up. Where is the mic? Peter, where is the mic? Thank you. Bring it this way. We can start with those two. Please come here so that you can also see you and hear you.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. My question goes to Dr. Pacifica. You talked about gender transformation, I think in the contemporary Africa setup. You were talking about this transformation where chores, domestic chores are like divided among the male and female. Like, let's say I've gone to work, or the wife has gone to work, and I'm in the house. I'm supposed to I change diapers, I wash dishes, I do the floor, I do the clothes. But the question is, according to Africa cultural setup, there are predefined roles that are meant for men and women. So are this transformation not in discordance with these norms? And at the end of it, when we look at these women or men that claim to be transformed in their way of doing things, we realize that there's a lot of disintegration among family. So isn't this a threat to the family? I rest my case.
Thank you very much. My question goes to Dr. Pacifica. It's basically on methodological approach of your paper, of your study, particularly on data collection method that you used. You indicated that you used an online poll and reached out to 100 plus participants of your study. I do not know the structure of your questionnaire, but to me, it has given me an impression that, or to reach that number, it was structured in a quantitative way. The question is, how confident are you, given the way you explained or you gave us your findings, showing sentiments of those that participated in your study, but a structure that is quantitative in nature? How would you be able to tell us even the feelings of the people, And how would you give us those qualitative responses? How would you show them? Because from the introduction of your paper and how I understood it, I had presumed that it would take the approach of qualitative, where you would easily interact and even obtain hidden elements or aspects of those family relations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you very much, the presenters. My interest will first go to Patrick. Patrick is the one who brought in this issue of sports and gender, and quickly ran away from a theory called masculinity and went to the one of culture. I will be interested in getting him explaining the reasons why he thinks masculinity as a theory is not applicable, because I've read so many works actually employing masculinity and femininity, including my own students. For Dr. Pacific, on this question of transformation, I want you to demonstrate whether this is true in Africa, that actually husband is a man and a wife is, that we have reached there in this contemporary Africa. Thank you.
Pacifica, kindly you can come respond to those, and also the one we got online. 5 minutes, please. Respond to what you can.
In the family, or there are none, you know, and whether these are African or not African. Allow me to begin with the floor, questions from the floor, before I go to the questions that were raised online. First and foremost, there was the question on domestic chores. And the question was, do this performance of chores, the discordance, doesn't it go against the culture? I want to say that, number one, if we think culture is fixed, then we are wrong, because culture is dynamic. So which culture is this are we talking about? It's us who are constructing gender, deconstructing, and almost every day, all of us are doing gender. And by the way, the disintegration that you are talking about, for me, I would place it elsewhere. I would say the stream of change has already started. It started in the 18th century with the Enlightenment period, where we started marketing rights of the individual, you know? And so when different people begin claiming rights, and then you bring in an obstacle called, according to the culture of my people, women are supposed to be this, men are supposed to be that. That stream might just sweep you. And what is happening is that this stream is literally pushing people that are not aligning themselves with the change out of the marriage institution to formations that we are now seeing. That would be my take. I may be wrong, I may be right, but those are my views anyway. Now, and so for me, I expect or I imagine that masculinities, femininities, gender relations within households have to change with the changing circumstances in response to contemporary challenges and needs. Now, going to the second question on methodology, I wish I had enough time to go through exactly all the responses I had. I used a Google form, and in this Google form, I was able to also ask for explanations. So while I have a lot of quantitative data, I also have qualitative data. Much of it, I am still trying to literally analyze properly for the, for the publication. But what I want to emphasize is that while the quantitative data gave the trends, the few explanations I was able to look at gave the explanations. So it's not that I do not have qualitative data. What I don't have is I didn't speak to physical people. I didn't go to Peter, sit with a questionnaire, and start asking questions. That I didn't do. But I have both quantitative and qualitative data. I may not be able to demonstrate whether some changes are African or they are not. But let me tell you a story. I am a storyteller. I have some relatives, brothers, to be specific, who, when they are alone with their wives, they can do everything. From changing diaper to cooking, making tea. But when a relative is on the door, they say, hey, take the baby away from me. They might think you are sitting on me. So your take is as good as mine. Is this change or is it not change? The point is there are changes in performance of domestic chores, whatever it is that is pushing the change. Then I had very interesting questions from the online audience. And one of them was wondering, are these changes being experienced, particularly those related to the socioeconomic changes? What is the relationship between these and the stability in the family and gender-based violence in society? I want to say gender-based violence is huge. There are many drivers to gender-based violence. And from culture to, the socioeconomic status of individuals. But more importantly for me, I want to say that contexts have to be studied and understood. So we cannot generalize on some of these. But what I'm also noticing is that there are so many gender-based crimes. Our African societies swept some of these below the carpet. So defilements and stuff like that were swept below the carpet. But now they are being brought to the fore because of the legislations and things that are happening. But then again, I want to ask us all, how do we explain the fact that some of us cannot take questions to our, our behavior? Why, to an extent that sometimes we want to control people to an extent of killing them so that we control them permanently. So there's too much on gender-based violence that is a topic, is actually a course that I may not even be able to cover properly. And then the other good question I got is, what are the practical steps that may be put in place to help us achieve gender equality much earlier, so that succeeding generations can have an Africa with equal opportunities? And as a practitioner, I want to mention that there are lots of models that are being tried. The effectiveness of these models, from the SASA model, Start Awareness Support Action, which encourages speaking out and discussions around gender relations, to Promundo Manhood 2.0. Those of you who have studied masculinities would agree with me that Promundo is literally about involving men, because much of the work towards gender equality has been done by women, more or less women speaking to themselves about equality. But now there is that movement towards involving men and having honest discussions like, what do we think would happen to our daughters if they were to come to these very violent relationships as we see them? Do we want it for them, or what is it that we could do differently? Thank you. I don't think I want to answer anymore. Oh, there's one last one. Sorry. How does religion impact gender transformation in contemporary African societies? It depends on what religion you are talking about. Are you talking about African indigenous Christian churches that are combining both culture and some elements of Christianity picked from the Bible? Or something about religion is that religious books do not interpret themselves. So you can give everybody a Bible here and tell them, read John 3:16, for example. And all of us are going to have different interpretations of this. Why? Because we use keys ingrained in our subconscious, many of which are picked from our context, culture, education, name it, to interpret what we are reading. So we cannot even generalize on religion. Some are very positive and are literally helping to transform gender relations, while some are entrenching, and subjugating women the more. Thank you.
Thank you for the observation, Prof. I chose the theory of cultural theory of history because it brings all ideas of masculinity in it. It encompasses ideas of hegemonic masculinity, patriarchy, and it. But it also allows me to look at sports from other categories. Like I said, why is there distinction in provision of sports from one gender to another? And at the same time, why is there distinction of that provision of sports when it comes to one race? The African boy is regarded as requiring to be physically strong and all the values that people associate with sports, and for the girl is totally different. And also I've read a lot of criticism on patriarchy and hegemonic masculinities, and one of the issues historians would have with the theory is that it's not very good when it comes to explaining change over time. Perhaps what I should have mentioned is that this paper is a small piece of my whole PhD thesis, where I'm going beyond the period I've specified to today. So looking at transformation of ideas of sports, ideas of masculinities, possession of men and women, of Africans, and so on. Yes, thank you.
The debate will continue even over tea. And maybe, is there any response to Sunday's presentation? The womb, the pregnant Nigerian woman who does not have access to health provision. So again, we come to the issue of inaccessibility of healthcare, inaccessibility of education, which Professor Monene, who is seated here, was talking about yesterday. So we get back to the question of policy and the lack and the lack. Then we talk about hegemonic masculinity, domination. Pacifica, what you talk about as a sociologist fits very well with historians. Your use of terms, domination, subjugation, fit very well with historians, and we really identify with what you're talking about. Sorry. Kirago, when you talk about the muscular Christianity, the use of force and the othering and the bad names used on African culture, African religion, to allow for sports, that is Western sport, to come and take the place of African sport and maybe imbibe team building, fortitude. They were there even in the African sports, among the Kalenjin, among the Kamba, among the Kikuyu, and the other African communities. So colleagues, I think it's time we go and take our tea. Let's put our hands together for all of us and for the presenters as we go for tea. And we also wave at our online participants and tell them that we are going for tea. Thank you. See you after tea. Thank you. It's tea time. Back to Peter.